Good afternoon to everyone on the conference. I'm not sure whether to call it a call or a conference. I'm not as up to speed with technology as I should be, but I know that we are broadcasting live. So I want to thank everyone for taking the opportunity to be with us this afternoon. If you'll remember back in March when we went to the online education format that we somewhat were forced into, we had a similar event. We had a great conference then, and I hope we have as much attendance, and I hope that we're able to pass as much information to you as we did back then that will help you understand where we're going for this upcoming school year. We've worked very hard since March to develop our practices, our protocols, our procedures to be able to open the school as was advertised, with the first day of classes being August 17th. We have a complete outline of the calendar that is on our website and will be posted periodically throughout this broadcast so you can see it as I refer to certain dates. I would ask as we go through this that you let me complete my conversation and the information that I want to pass to you, and not I don't want to lose you. If you have a question, please make a note. And if we don't answer it, then at the end, you'll be more than able to type in the question and we'll get you the answer. I would also remind you that this is a very fluid situation. We are in direct contact daily with our governor's office here in New Mexico, with the Secretary of Higher Education, and with all the agencies that are involved in the current crisis situation. So what we put out today is the most current information we have. Some things we have decided what our approach will be. There are things, again, that are just unknown. What we've tried to do in the last few months is have a strategy team that would challenge each other with what if scenarios, and then we would develop a protocol for that scenario. So some things that are still unknown, when they become known, we believe we have a process to address it. So if you would allow me to go through where we are today and how we got here first, and then I want to pre-answer maybe some questions for you. I'd like to let you know that who's on the call with me today in case I stumble and need their help. We have the people that back me up every single day. From academics, of course, Brigadier General Doug Murray, our academic dean. From our athletic department, our athletic director, Jose Barron. From finance to help with our back to school costs and the things that we'll be dealing with is our Assistant Chief Financial Officer, Dina Kernet, and of course the Commandant, Lieutenant Colonel John Graff. So they'll all be on the call. If I need to, we will refer to them and ask them to provide additional information if it's something that I'm not able to provide. So if we could start, as I said again, we started as far as 2 months ago to work towards an opening in accordance with our published calendar that had already been published and was already out. But as we started to strategize about the what if scenarios, we started to develop different options. Some of those was to go to a longer plan of the day to accommodate things like social distancing, wearing of a mask, screening of our cadets before, during the school semester. And as we got closer and closer, one of the options that surfaced was to start the school year a week earlier, start classes on the 10th of August, and then leave at the Thanksgiving break and not carry on until the 1st of December. That really started to gain a lot of favor. We placed a lot of emphasis and time on can we make that scenario work. We believe there's a lot of pluses in the overall scenario. There's the plus to on the call that you don't have two plane tickets 3 weeks apart. That's been a problem in the past. This way, when we leave for the Thanksgiving break, this semester would be over and you would not return until January. The other thing that we're looking at is if people did leave for Thanksgiving and with the anticipation of coming back, because of additional protocols that are still out there for travel, they may not be able to return if they left for Thanksgiving. So we started to really zero in on this idea of leaving at Thanksgiving. At that point, our senior ROTC got involved, our Professor of Military Science, Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Johnson. We were working with the United States Cadet Command. because they're having difficulties dealing with the requirements they have when we have restricted travel and the protocols that we have today in place. We finally got some guidance from them that asked each of the ROTC units across the country to conduct their own basic camp at their facility. So that started to again start to zero in and give us some dates and times that we needed. So backing up from the 10th of August didn't allow us time to conduct that basic camp. Plus, there had already been some commitments made as far as support for that basic camp. Then we got into the athletic world. We're assuming we'll have a full start in our athletic programs. I'll get into that in more detail, but the NCAA, who is guiding most of the post-secondary athletic programs, has now allowed athletes to return to their campuses on 1 June. Our own New Mexico Athletic Association will allow workouts to begin 15 June. No contact, no equipment, but conditioning type workouts. So then again, as we looked at that and how that would be impacted by a 10 August start, we saw that we just couldn't accommodate it. We needed to stay with the original 17 August start. So I went back to the strategy team and asked them why we could not still leave by Thanksgiving. If we took those days that we control and eliminated those and turned those into academic days, could we still not complete the requirements that we have by the state for public education, the number of days we have in our high school division, and for the junior college division, we're really guided by our financial aid, our FAFSA, our students that have Pell Grants have to be in class 30 weeks out of a school year. Mostly it's divided 15 and 15. So we went back to the drawing board. We looked at all of those requirements and could we accomplish them by starting still on 17 August and then end but the Thanksgiving break. And we came back to the conclusion that yes, we could. So one of the things we're doing is obviously eliminating that 9-day Thanksgiving break. We now turn that into productive time. We will use that weekend that usually starts that to begin finals and then end finals on the Tuesday or Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving. So we gained over 5 academic days by doing that. We also looked at the holidays that we had built into the schedule. We recognize Labor Day and we recognize Veterans Day. Well, we're going to turn those into academic days. So now we have 7 days that we've gained. Finally, here in the city of Roswell, in the Chaves County, we have the big Eastern State Fair Parade. We believe that will not happen this year. So there's another academic day we gained. So we take those academic days, turn those into productive days that would normally we would be off. We would not either be here at all, or we would certainly not be in an academic setting. And we found that, yes, we can meet all of those requirements by public education, higher education, federal government for FAFSA, and still be able to get out of here at that Thanksgiving break. So you're seeing on the schedule or on the screen our timeline. Again, this timeline is posted on nmmi.edu. It starts with those early commissioning cadets showing up for that 2-week basic camp that'll be conducted right here on campus under the control of the senior ROTC department. But then you start to see filtering in there the other things that we normally do. Now you'll see athletes reporting. You'll see the band reporting. You'll see the preps reporting from the 19th, 20th of July up until normal matriculation of high school and junior college cadets on the 5th and 6th of August. So this schedule's there. It's outlined for all of those that are affected to start early. The Corps, the cadre, all know their start times under the control of the commandant. Then we would have our first day of classes on the 17th of August. Now, a couple of things you see on the schedule that we still have up in question, trying to maximize every minute of time, but at the same time being cognizant and sensitive to the fact that our environment's very stressful. So we want our cadets to have downtime, to have time to relax, and have free time. So one of the things that we're looking at, haven't made a final decision, is the traditional 21-day celebration for the new cadets, approximately 3 weeks after classes start. where all the parents come back in. Then 3 weeks after that, we used to have our first parents weekend. And that was the highlight of that was a full formal parade on Stat Field. So we're looking at combining those into one event, and that frees up time for parents and for cadets. So as I said again at the starting, some of these things are very fluid. It's all intended to get this done by the Thanksgiving break. It's also intended to give our cadets time. If you'll see then the rest of the schedule, October, November, and we're out, and we graduate the Thursday or the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Now, this is going to require a lot of help and commitment from parents, cadets, here at the Institute, all of the people that are on this call, the three primary pillars of what we run the school on, education, athletics, and leadership, have all joined hands and understand that it takes a sharing of resources to make this happen, but we're committed to make this happen on your behalf. Now, if you'd allow me just a minute to try to answer some questions that we think you have or we know have already been asked as these things have been considered. So I'm going to kind of refer, if you'll see my eyes turn just a minute, I'll apologize. It's not that I'm turning away from the camera. I just want to follow some of the pre-questions that we've tried to answer for you. Here again, please listen till I finish. Then if we didn't answer your question, we'd be more than happy to try to get that answer. Keeping in mind, there's some things that are still in a fluid situation that we may have multiple answers waiting for the right question to be asked, and then we'll be ready to respond. So one of the things that we know is important for particularly new cadets, new families coming from matriculation, was would the families be able to participate and attend? In the past, we've had no restrictions. We've had entire families come, follow their new cadet through the matriculation process from that morning until that evening when they walk through Sallyport as a member of the Corps. This year, we have to take things differently. The families can show up, but when we start matriculating, when the cadet starts through the matriculation process, we will be limiting it to only 2 family members that can follow the cadet. And if it's a minor cadet, one of those must be the parent that can sign on behalf of the minor. So yes, you can come, yes, you can be here, but once we start the matriculation process, which means going across this campus, room to room, building to building, it'll be restricted to the cadet and 2 family members. If the child flies into Roswell, will he or she be required to be quarantined for 14 days? The answer is yes. Let me back up just a minute and explain what our protocols right now are that we will be following. The first thing we will do, if it's available and cost effective, we will test, not screen, test every cadet for the virus. And then they will be screened on a daily basis for temperature and for pulse and oxygen levels. This is a protocol that's been passed on to us by, we're very fortunate to have a group of doctors here in Roswell and professional nurses that are guiding us in developing these protocols. They suggested that we do the non-touch thermometer and then the pulse by putting it on the finger every day. But initially we want to test, full test everyone. And if you go back, you can see that as those different groups come in, each one of them start their own 14-day process. So to complete and start from start to finish, we'll be in this 14-day window for over 30 days by the groups. We intend to signify each group and each day with a color-coded wristband so that we'll know that the students have been screened and they're safe. The other thing we're working towards is to try to get the Corps identified as a family unit, because family units are allowed to do things together. So if we test, screen every day for those 14 days, and you're inside that family unit, we hope and we believe we'll be able to have less restrictions. Maybe we won't have to have social distancing in the classroom if we've met all those criteria. We're prepared to do that, social distancing that is, in every building, in every classroom, in the mess hall, everything. We have an answer for that if we're under that protocol. But we believe if we can test and then screen and then have them enter the family unit, as long as they're inside there and they have the daily screening, we may not have to have some of the social distancing. or the wearing of a mask, as long as we're inside that family unit. What will happen if a child can't report to NMMI at the designated matriculation time? We're very cognizant, very well aware of travel restrictions, some domestically still, certainly international, that may prevent our cadets from coming. The other thing we're very well aware of in our international cadets is even if there's not a travel restriction, because the embassies have been closed, the lines are very long, they may not be able to get their visas, their I-20s, they may not be able to get the required documentation. We understand that. So the answer to the question is yes, they would be allowed to begin the year still in an online format. If those travel restrictions are released and they're early enough in the semester, then they would be allowed to join the Corps of Cadets. We do believe, though, if we go so far into the semester in the online, it really wouldn't do any good to try to show up in the second half of the semester. We would ask that you wait and then begin in January. But the answer is yes, we will have an ability for our cadets who have been fully accepted, either returning or new. If there's travel restrictions or restrictions that prohibit them from being here, they will be in an online posture. Now, having said that, I want to make sure everyone understands that due to the type of institute that New Mexico Military Institute is, and so much of what occurs by being here, we are going to take the position that you cannot opt to be in online versus residence if there are no restrictions to prevent you from being here. If there are no restrictions in any way that you can imagine, then you must be here. We want you here and to be in the residence at NMMI. The next one is, as you can imagine, embassies are slowly reopening, facing huge demand. As I said, we understand that. That will be in that category of something you can't control that's preventing you from being here. So starting in an online situation would certainly be allowed. Will the classes be in person or blended? Well, obviously we believe they'll be blended because we'll have those students that possibly can't get here that will begin in an online situation, and then we'll have those students in residence. So we do believe that the dual format will be going on, primarily in residence, we hope and believe, but we do accept the fact that we'll have some online education going on. In case the student is unable to attend NMMI's Fall 2020, can they choose to attend via distance learning? It's a similar question that we've talked about. Will families be screened upon arrival? The answer is yes. If you're on this campus, every family member will go through our screening protocol, not testing, but screening protocol, which is the temperature and the pulse and oxygen level rating. Will you be required to wear masks? We're going to wait on the answer to that question because of the protocols here in the state of New Mexico. We'll see what the protocols within the state are, and we will comply with those at the time. Again, we're some 45 to 50 days away from that, and things change very quickly. Will cadets be required to wear masks on post? Again, we don't have a definitive answer to this. We're prepared to do that if we need be. We will give them a mask. The Commandant has worked on a rotation plan of masks to ensure they're clean and safe that they're wearing. But as I mentioned before, if we can get testing, screening, and put everyone inside a controlled family unit, we're hoping some of those protocols will not have to be followed so strictly inside when you're on the campus proper. Will my son or daughter share a room with another cadet? Yes. We've thought about this from a variety of positions. First and foremost, we have 962 beds. If I went with one to a room, I'd cut the attendance in half. And then we just simply wouldn't be able to conduct school. The second thing, and we've talked to, again, health and mental health professionals, is there certainly is a mental positive aspect about having a roommate as compared to being isolated by yourself in a room. So we believe that the protocols we have in place, the assistance and help we're getting from the medical community, and the sanitary nature, and I'll talk about that, of the campus itself, that 2 to a room will be just fine. What are NMMI's plans for cadets in case there's a new virus outbreak? These are protocols, again, that we've established with the help of medical professionals. We have room in our infirmary to completely isolate a cadet or an individual. We have rooms that have been designated within the barracks area that can be isolated and quarantined. We also know that if a case occurs on the campus, that we're going to have an enormous amount of influx immediately of state and maybe even federal medical and professional guidance to help us with that condition. But I guess the answer is, if one occurs through our daily screening or testing, then we're going to isolate the individual. We're going to initially put them in our infirmary, which can hold up to 30, now not in isolation, but up to 30 in the infirmary. And then we will start the protocols for their care and for their hopeful recovery from being affected by the virus. What happens if a virus occurs during the year? Well, this is another thing that really weighed heavily in our decision of trying to get out of here by Thanksgiving. I think probably many people on this show have seen or heard that there's an expectation of a resurgence in the last of October or the 1st of November. That's the normal time the flu starts to surface anyway. If we are that point in the semester, we would only be about 3 weeks away from the end of the semester anyway. So what our plan would be is to absolutely lock the campus down, remain here until we finish the semester in an in-residence posture. The campus would be absolutely locked down to the outside world. The only ones that would come and go would be our faculty and staff who have to go to their homes and come back each day. In the infirmary, the backside of the infirmary is built like a medical facility. We would have them report there. They would be completely screened before they were allowed to actually walk on the campus. And we would finish the campus the semester in an in-residence setting. So that is our plan right now. That's also why we went with trying to end by Thanksgiving. So if this resurgence occurs in that last 2-3 weeks, we'll be able to close the semester out in residence and then go home for not only the break, but if the virus is still there, if everything is still like it was at the end of the semester, we would probably begin the second semester in an online format, and we would be prepared to do that. Will visitors be allowed at NMMI? Again, yes, but with certain limitations and protocols. We will have 3 or 4 established points of contact that they will first go to and be screened and be given that day's wristband to identify that they've been screened and they have the ability to be on the campus. So it will be available, but it will be very limited. Will cadets be allowed to go home during the year? The answer to that is yes, but probably not where someone flies for 2 reasons. Those protocols are very strict, and we believe they'll continue to be strict for anyone flying. New Mexico has placed flying in the absolute quarantine level. You can travel by car, but if you travel by air coming into New Mexico, they're going to want you into isolation. So yes, we will have ability on weekends for furloughs for cadets to leave to go home, but not to fly. We don't believe that's going to be a possibility in this very intense semester. Will the test have an additional cost? If NMMI is administering and requiring the COVID-19 test, it will be at our cost. If a parent requires or asks for additional testing, that will be on the cost of the family. But as I mentioned, it's our hope that a test will be available, and we will administer that test to every single cadet when we get here to begin the semester, and that will be at the cost of NMMI. Sanitizing plans. I mentioned this earlier. We are in the process of installing hand sanitizers at every room, in every classroom, the mess hall, every public area in the camp, hundreds of them. I don't know the exact number, but hundreds of them are being installed all around the campus. We have machines. I don't know, I'm not that technically up to speed on these machines, but these machines can fog a room in just 2 or 3 minutes and completely sanitize it. We are ordering machines to where we can do this every day in every room. Finally, we're using atomizers in our weight rooms. We're taking every protocol we possibly can to have the safety of the cadet and ourselves, our faculty and staff here. So sanitation stations everywhere, at every door, at every room, atomizers, and these machines that will fog and sterilize a room in just a matter of minutes. What about a refund for the shorter semester? It's really not a shorter semester in terms of the days that we now are using to house and feed, that we would have the students completely gone. So again, let me refer back to the old calendar at Thanksgiving. We were gone 9 consecutive days of not living in our own barracks or mess hall. Now we're making 7 of those days administratively productive days. So there's not a refund expected, because we will be using the same amount of days we're living in the barracks and eating in the mess hall, just using them differently throughout the semester. So we do not anticipate a refund of the normal cost for the semester. Let me see if there's anything that I haven't addressed. Furloughs I've mentioned, breaks during the semester. Again, the parents are asking, what if I come to see my cadet? Yes, you'll be allowed to do that with the protocols we have in place. At this point, I'm going to open it up. You have the ability to type in a question, and then we would answer it here. Again, I have all of the primary support staff in all functional areas here. If it's a question that needs to go to them, we can have them answer the question for you. I'm sorry, I have 2 computers going, one so I can see the questions, and it timed out on me, so I apologize. Let's see. Do you predict any changes to the marching formation as it currently stands due to social distancing? The answer is yes, but I'm going to let the Commandant expand on this, because I know he and his staff have thought about this extensively, about how we would handle that.
Yes, sir. Question. We got a lot of different things we need to consider. So the first thing is, as y'all come back on campus, we want to make sure that everyone gets screened, and then if testing becomes available, we're going to test y'all. Once that is complete, we hope to be able to designate you as a family unit, and if that's the case, then a lot of the things that we normally do, like marching, going to those kind of things, we hope to have back in place. Some of that is also going to depend on CDC guidelines, and some of it on state requirements. Some of you have asked about going off post. For the first 3 weeks, like we normally do, it's going to be pretty much business as usual, with a focus on training new cadets. As we start classes, and then we start to get towards our 21-day celebration, when normally everybody would be allowed to go off post, then that's going to depend on what the state says about what the requirements are, and we'll follow those protocols. Because we do want to keep you in an environment here on post where you can have some of those restrictions eased. Any cadet that goes off post will have to be screened once they come back on. And that's just to preserve the family atmosphere, and also to make sure that we're limiting the spread if somebody's in their off post. But as much as possible, we're going to follow those protocols designated by the state, and then ease up on restrictions as we're allowed.
Thank you, John. I would like to ask General Murray to expand up on the blended approach to education, where we have some in the classroom and some on distance at the same time. General Murray?
Yes, thank you, sir. Yeah, the majority of the learning will take place as it always has, with in-place, in-classroom learning, with following our usual curriculum. However, realizing that there will be some students who will not be able to come back or restricted from coming back, we are setting up a regular program of distance delivery of learning. The curriculum will be the same. I have asked my associate deans to identify courses that would ensure that the necessary requirements for graduation would be met. I should tell you that we have just completed, actually, we're in the middle of completing a in-training program of our faculty to give them better insights on how to do online education. But we believe that this hybrid effort will produce an outcome not very much unlike what if we had all of our students here on campus, which is what we hope will eventually take place.
Thank you, General Murray. I want to go back to a question that was kind of answered, but it's up on the screen. And what if I drive, and this particular question is from California, do I still have to be quarantined? The answer is we will be putting everyone into this 14-day, and we've wrestled with this term. What does quarantine, isolation, separation, what does it mean? Yes, that person, if this is a cadet that's asking the question, would drive here, they would be tested, and then they would be monitored every single day, screened for 14 days. They would not have to live in a room and couldn't get out and couldn't move around. They would be inside this protected family unit, assuming the test was negative. So yes, you would be in this 14-day watch period, if you will, but you will be inside this protected family unit during that 14-day. You would not have to stay in a room and be isolated from the Corps. So again, our governor has distinguished very clearly the difference between driving and flying. So anyone that's driving here, parent or cadet, will not be subjected to the real 14-day period that the airlines flight will have a greater restriction, at least today. Again, we're 45, 50 days between now and then, and we'll be ready to react to whatever protocol is in place at that time. For the commandant, they're wondering about bringing cadre back ahead. Why are we doing that? Why would we not wait and bring all cadets in just to start class?
That's another good question. We still have training that we have to do. One of the new training requirements is going to be training cadets on the proper hygiene protocols that this situation requires. So being able to do the training, we're still going to have responsibilities for leadership in the Corps. We still need those leaders to help the Corps function. I see some questions about the family unit. We want to designate the Corps as a family unit, and that's because family units have less restrictions. So there's no difference in the organization. There is a difference in conduct our business as far as following the hygiene protocols and following the sanitation protocols. And as long as we preserve that integrity here on post, then we should be allowed some easing of the restrictions that would allow more freedom of movement, more access to being able to have more cadets in the classroom, participate in sports, and participate in the other club activities that you would normally expect to have if this was not a concern with COVID-19. So we do still need cadre to come back early. We still need to do training. If the restrictions are not lifted, then we have additional training that we'll have to do to make sure that we've social distancing protocols as required by the state or the CDC. Thanks.
I've got three questions that in some way are connected. Let me give you the questions. Do you know at this point whether the state or county Department of Public Health imposed restrictions will be in place when the term starts? Honestly, no. As I said, the governor has actually established some dates that she will make announcements of changes. The next one is June 15th. We'll wait and see what happens June 15th as far as things being restricted. June 1st, she allowed businesses to open with certain protocols. She allowed restaurants to go back to 50% seating indoors. So we'll just be ready to respond accordingly. If no cadets or faculty test positive or show signs after screening, how long will the screening and other protocols continue? Again, I'm not trying to not answer the question, but We will be somewhat limited. If there's any additional state requirements, then certainly we will meet those. It is our intention that the screening, particularly for faculty and staff, those who will be leaving the post on a daily basis, will continue for as much as the first semester if need be. But again, some of that will be governed by the state. How will returning cadets go to classes if they're quarantined for 2 weeks? Again, I think hopefully we tried to explain that. Quarantine doesn't mean you're in a room and you can't leave. Quarantine means you're inside a protected environment. You're going to be screened every day, and you will be allowed to move around within that protected environment. We'll be still recognizing social distancing. We will be wearing a mask if protocols are there that we should do those things. But quarantine doesn't mean you're going to be stuck in a room for 2 weeks and can't come out. So I hope that's really clear. How has the coronavirus affected the renovations? A great question. Thank you. We have a tremendous amount of upgrades and facility renovations that have gone on over the summer. The primary one is Cahoon Armory, our primary athletic facility. They were down about 3 weeks where they were not able to work on the building. One of the members of the crew had a family member that was exposed, so they took the prudent thing and put the entire crew into isolation for 2 weeks. But they're back in full speed. They are still hoping to turn the building back to us in December and be able to start in the second semester in Cahoon. The other 2 major projects have been held up a little bit only because of supplies, and that is the bowling alley renovation and JRT. Those we found out that the only people that make bowling equipment are international. So we now have the equipment on order, and as soon as it arrives, they'll be able to start the renovation there. And the third major one was the latrines, 45 of them. They'll be done one at a time. The designs have been done, and it is out for bid for a contractor. So we really haven't been slowed down in that area. A fourth one that we didn't talk a lot about was we signed an energy efficiency contract, and they have been here, and they never did slow down. They have been changing lights, fixtures, controllers, even boilers, chillers, all across the campus, about a $6.5 million project, and that has continued nonstop. So if anything, we were only delayed about 3 weeks in the Cahoon project, and we hope that they be able to make that up with steady work between now and December when it's due to come back. Can cadets go off post if they've been approved for an internship at the Roswell Police Department? The answer again is yes. You would go, you would do that internship. I'm very well aware of the question. Then you would be re-screened when you come back inside the family unit, the protected unit. So you would be allowed to leave, just as people today in the city of Roswell are driving up and down the street, they're going to the store, they are wearing masks, and they are practicing social distancing. So a lot of what we do will be decided with the state in concurrence. So those internships that I know that we work very hard to have in place, yes, the cadet would go, they would conduct their internship, they would return to the campus, be screened, and then be allowed to re-enter the protected environment of the Corps of Cadets. Here you go, Commandant. We should have expected this one. Can they still carry cell phones?
That's another good question. We're still going to have Blue Book rules in effect, so you can carry your cell phone as an old cadet. You won't be able to use it outside, just as you have not been able to do in the past. You'll be able to use it in your room or in the classroom if your instructor allows that. For new cadets or for RATs, you're not going to be able to have your cell phone. It has to stay in your room. If you do have an emergency, of course, something of a nature where you have to get a hold of a parent or somebody in an emergency type situation, then you'll be able to go through your TLA or get with a coach or somebody like that to make that happen, or just go back to your room. So yeah, cell phone policy will remain in effect as it has.
And one for the athletic director. Will cadets be allowed to practice their sports How will team travel be handled?
Very good question. And as General Grizzles mentioned, a lot of what we're going to do is driven by the state and what the state allows us to do. We are in contact with all the associations that we are part of, our football conference, our conference for all the other college sports, and the New Mexico Activities Association for high school sports. They will provide some best practices and guidelines. As of right now, it's not. There is no designated way for travel. Well, there's a lot of information that's still yet to come, and this far out, we can tell you that we will do what is safe for our cadets as far as travel is concerned. As far as practices, as of right now, our junior college sports are on track to practice on time and as every other year. We do not have final guidance on practices for our high school teams, and the board of directors for the Nmmi has been meeting on a regular basis. And as the state allows more, then they will allow greater interaction between players. Right now, there's very minimal. Those that are in the state are allowed only basic workouts with no implements, no basketballs, footballs, or anything like that, no weights. So it's going to be a progressive approach to it, but we are in touch with those associations, and we will update that information as it becomes available to us.
General Murray, another question for you. Will tutors still be allowed to come onto campus to tutor cadets?
We envision that they would, but they'd have to follow all the protocols that's normally associated with visitors coming on the campus. And
I have one more for the commandant. Will junior college cadets be allowed to use their personal vehicles, be allowed to drive home on furlough?
Yes, sir. That policy will still be as it has been in the past. The biggest thing is going to be, of course, for the first 3 weeks while we're trying to establish the security of the family unit, then we're going to restrict the ability of all cadets to be able to leave post. And again, if anybody leaves, they're going to have to be rescreened when they come back. Saw another question about spring rats being able to turn. Looking at GPA and deportment, everything looks good there. So as soon as everyone gets back, that'll be one of the first tasks for the regimental staff, is to plan and execute a Bronco challenge for those cadets. But yeah, that'll be one of the first things we take care of when they come back.
This is a senior ROTC question, and I'm sorry we don't have the PMS on the call, but I think I can answer it. The question is about the basic camp, coming in early to do that, and what will they do? Will they have to stay late to do the second half of that? I received a letter personally from the commander, Major General Evans, of Cadet Command. They are having an advanced camp consolidated at several locations. Our ECP cadets will report here and then go to that camp for the advanced camp. We'll conduct our own basic, and then Major General Evans has asked that we conduct in the spring and in the fall a series of 3 or 4 day FTXs to make up the remaining requirements. So I don't believe that anyone will have to stay later to complete the second part of basic camp, but they are allowing us to do those things here at NMMI with all of our facilities and with the support that we have primarily from the New Mexico National Guard for other equipment required to do that. So I don't believe any additional time will be needed for the senior ROTC cadets. The next one is I want to go back to, because apparently I didn't do a good job of articulating our position. It's from 2 different questions, again, about foreign or international students. Can you take the option to stay online even if there are no restrictions to prevent you from being here? And that answer is no. If there are absolutely no restrictions to prevent you from being here, domestic or international, then we expect you to be here. Now, the next one is similar to that. Foreign students will do online classes. Yes, if and only if you can't get here. If there's some restriction, your embassy, you can't get your visa, travel restrictions, if there's some restriction that prevents you from being here, we understand. We will allow you to go online until hopefully you can come here. But the option domestic or international. The option of just staying home because you want to stay in an online environment will not be there. If there are absolutely no restrictions, domestically or international, to keep you from coming to NMMI and being a traditional cadet in residence, then you will need to be here. So I hope that's clear. Flying matriculation second semester, we don't know. Again, that's a long way out there. I could give you two what ifs. If this virus resurfaces, like people have suggested, in late October, or early November, and we finish the semester, as I said, by locking down, staying here 3 weeks, and then dismissing, I think there's every likelihood that we would start the second semester in a pure online environment again. If it forced us into that at the end of October, first part of November, I don't know that it would be resolved by the first week of January to come back to the campus for the second semester. Now, if we're not forced into that, if everything continues, we finish the semester fine, we all go home, and we come back 5 January, again, I'm going to have to defer to the state. Is the state going to lessen their requirements about travel restrictions, flying versus driving? We'll just have to follow that protocol at the time. Well, here's a very good one, and I've got a lot of people on here to help me because we're very concerned how to do this, and that's homecoming. Homecoming is very important to NMMI. It's a multi-day event. It starts on Wednesday night with the ring dinner and goes all the way till Saturday night with the homecoming dance. We're struggling with what to do, how to do that. We do not want to cancel that very important event, but at the same time, we recognize that for the last few years, we've had anywhere from 500 to 700 visitors come to the campus. How will we handle that? How can we safely handle them and our cadets? This is one of those honest answers. Right now, we don't have the answer. We're looking at every possible way to conduct it. We're using those scenarios and trying to say, what if? How do we handle it? So it's a very important question. I wish I had a better, more definitive answer. Right now, we do not want to cancel. We are not planning on canceling homecoming, but we are struggling and working very hard to establish a routine to handle homecoming. And as soon as that is more defined, and that's something I didn't say at the beginning, and I apologize, I should have, we intend to have more of these webinars between now and matriculation, so that we can pass on information to you as quickly as it is available to us. These decision points by the governor, the next one is June 15th, to see what else she may or may not restrict or ease some of the restrictions. That then helps us decide these scenarios that we've developed. Once we have a definitive answer, then we can pick the scenario we develop that goes with that answer. And we will have calls like this over the next 45 to 60 days heading up to matriculation, so parents and cadets can be as informed as we possibly can make them in this period of confusion. I don't know any other way. We're trying to remove the confusion by calls like this and by telling you what we know, what our position is on these issues, but at the same time being very honest, there's still so many unknown factors that we're trying to get definitive answers so then we can apply a solution to. Will you offer the flu vaccine as soon as it is possible? As typical, yes. Once the vaccine is available, just like we do traditional flu vaccine, it's made available to our cadets. We will make a flu vaccine available when it becomes available. What will happen to crowd gathering, award ceremonies, football games, dances? Again, right now, that's controlled by the governor. She is putting restrictions on group gatherings by number within the state. You can't have a gathering. I don't know what I think it's 50. Someone might help me. I believe she's restricted to no gatherings larger than 50 within the state of New Mexico right now. So again, we're going to be subjected to that limitation that's imposed by the state, and then we'll adapt our events to conform with that. Is the gym open? And how are we going to be able to do our PT? Colonel Barone, you want to answer that?
Sure. Well, so let me answer that in a couple of different ways. Number one, one of our gyms is open right now. The athletic weight room is open in accordance with state guidelines for gyms. So we've opened it using all the protocols that are being used by whatever gym is open in New Mexico right now. So that gym is open. Our plan is to, within the next couple of weeks, reopen the Godfrey Athletic Center again, fully in accordance with the law or with the regulations or the guidelines passed by the state of New Mexico. We are in the process of procuring some equipment and some supplies that we'll need to make that happen safely. But the Godfrey Athletic Center will be open at approximately 50% capacity within a couple of weeks. That will lead into, when cadets arrive, whatever the state is allowing us in terms of the use of gyms, that's what we intend to provide at the Godfrey Athletic Center. As far as PT is concerned, our strength coaches are devising plans that would allow for some kind of distancing if necessary, and other safety precautions in terms of sanitizing equipment and things like that, to allow us to have as normal an experience with physical training as possible, and while still remaining safe in the use of equipment and other implements.
Thank you, Jose. I've got a couple of questions about senior ROTC. Let me kind of lump them together. Questions about how does the advanced camp, how do they get there? Do they fly? Will Cadet Command be controlling that? Our professor of military science, again, Colonel Aaron Johnson, will be putting out a complete letter of instruction to both new cadets and advanced cadets as to where they go, how they will report, how they will get there. He's ready to release that, I believe, either tomorrow or Monday, so that you will have all of that information. So instead of trying to second guess or tell you something that's inaccurate, please wait. He's going to put that out, and every cadet in ECP, the Early Commissioning Program, will be included in that distribution, both basic cadets and advanced cadets, and he'll cover all of those issues for you. Commandant, again, one that we've talked about that I know you're working on. How will you handle laundry service?
Yes, sir. The laundry service will operate as normal. Really no change there. And of course, we'd encourage cadets to use that probably more often, just to ensure that they're keeping their uniforms, their bedding, their masks clean. So when everybody gets here and matriculates, we will be issuing masks to cadets, and that'll be part of the protocol as far as limiting any kind of potential spread that could happen here on campus. But we want to ensure that we have that rotation set up, and otherwise laundry is going to operate as normal.
All right, thank you. I have a couple more kind of similar. When will we return for the spring semester? Right now, we're planning to follow our published academic calendar, and we would start back on the 5th of January. That is on the NMMI website, nmmi.edu. So please go there. And right now, we're making no adjustments to the spring schedule that's posted. So it should be there on the website. What if you've already been tested when you arrive at NMMI? Well, we're going to test you again. We're going to test every cadet so that we have a baseline here that's in our system and we can follow and track for protocol purposes. So I appreciate the fact you've been tested, but when you arrive here, you'll be tested again. I apologize again. A question that looks like maybe we've confused people. If I fly, I'll be quarantined. If I drive, I won't. Again, let's please not be confused by that word quarantine. Every student will be tested. Every student will then be screened on a daily basis and will be put into a 14-day watch period inside this protected environment of NMMI. So regardless of how you get here, you're going to be tested. You're going to be identified the day you arrive, and for the next 14 days, you're going to be screened every day to see that everything's okay. That's, I said earlier, that creates for us a rolling 14 days that lasts over a 30-day period from the first cadets that arrive till the last ones arrive just before the old cadets will be here the weekend right before we start on the 17th. So it doesn't matter how you travel, you'll be tested, you'll be identified as your start date for the 14 days, and every day you will be screened inside that protocol. So I hope I didn't confuse everybody. There's a lot of a difference within the state of Mexico if you're just a traveler as to how you get here, or even if you're a resident, if you can drive and then come back, you don't have to self-isolate, you don't have to do anything. But if you fly and you go through multiple airports, you're expected to put yourself into a 14-day quarantine. So again, I hope I didn't confuse anybody on that. There's someone that has indicated they had already planned a family vacation over Thanksgiving and don't know if they could cancel it. I would advise you again to wait. The schedule for finals, I believe, and the dean can help me here, has already been worked out for that time period. So please look at that. There may be a chance that your cadet will have finished their finals and be ready to leave, and it won't impact your vacation. Is that correct, Dean?
Yes, sir. 21 to 24 November is when we have schedules for finals, with the completion and fall graduation on the 25th.
Another question about the advanced camp going to a different location. Can they report directly there? Again, I know that the PMS is going to publish a letter of instruction today or Monday, and all of that information will be contained in there. At this point, how many rats are matriculating? Well, as always, that's a fluid number at this time of the year, but we're very pleased that we still had very good response, even though this period when we could not host open houses, which usually bring in a lot of cadets. But right now we're looking at a number between 375 and 425, with over 400 cadets re-enrolling. So we believe we'll be 825, 800. That's down a little from our 10-year average of 917. But we're still looking at a strong core of cadets in excess of 800 this coming year. Let's see. What if you've had the antibody testing? Again, we appreciate that. There's a number of us that are really looking forward to that test being available on a personal basis, but you still will need to be tested here with the tests that we use at the time. And again, we're working, in fact, we have a meeting tomorrow with a local laboratory who has indicated they can handle the volume and turn it around in a quick manner, so we'll have the results of those tests. So you'll need to be prepared to be tested when you get here. Again, I apologize if I'm not being clear. Will cadets be allowed to fly back to Nmmi in January? The answer is certainly yes. How they'll be treated, we don't know what the protocols will be at that time. But can they fly to come and return for the second semester? Absolutely, they will. We'll just be subjected to whatever protocols are in place at that time. See, we had someone that was concerned that we would even consider continuing to host homecoming and other major events as being irresponsible. Well, the answer is we're not going to do anything that's not under the purview of the state medical examiner, the state Department of Health. We're very involved. One of the medical doctors that's advising us is actually inside that environment right now as an active duty Air Guard Mexico National Guard member. And he is helping advise us in these protocols. So I can assure you we're not going to do anything that's not in complete compliance with the stated protocols of this state at the time. And then we will add additional protocols of our own if we believe that it needs to exceed, but certainly to meet the protocols that are established in this state at the time. Commandant, a good question. I am a potential new cadet. When would I get my uniforms for the fall semester? Okay, I'm told the commandant's offline for just a minute. You would get your uniforms during the first 2 weeks. That's the period between matriculation and when our classes start. That's where the military side, if you will, takes place. You'll be assigned a troop, a squad. You'll be put into your room. You'll meet your roommate. You will be taken to our warehouse and be issued your uniforms. That will all happen between, if you're a high school cadet, the 5th, junior college, the 5th, high school, the 6th of August, for the next 10 or 11 days up to the start of school on the 17th. Is when those types of activities take place. So you will be getting your uniforms during that time period. Again, I guess a clarification on what we tried to answer earlier. If someone tests positive, where will they be treated and how will that be handled? Well, the positive results would come back to our infirmary. That's where the tests are being taken. The person would initially be put into the infirmary in a isolated type environment within the infirmary. From there, again, we believe that the state will come and be involved in helping us determine, is that a treatment that can be done here? Does the patient need to go to a local hospital or go to even a different facility within the state that's been specially set up? And the state has done that to treat nothing but COVID-19 patients there. So the tests will be administered here. The results will be back here. Someone that tests positive would be identified, taken to the infirmary, and put into not quarantine, but isolation, certainly alone from the rest of the Corps in our infirmary. And then we will deal with the individual as we're provided guidance by the local and the state health officials. Another question, clarification of what I said earlier. When you new cadets here to matriculate, your family can travel with you to come here to Nmmi. But when you start the matriculation process, which will begin either the morning of the 5th or the 6th, depending on whether you're high school or junior college, only 2 family members will be allowed to go with you and follow you through that matriculation process. Particularly if you're high school, you have to have a legal guardian or a parent to be able to sign certain forms that must be signed by a guardian or an adult. So 2 members plus the cadet during the actual matriculation process, which will be the entire day of the 5th or the 6th. Prior to that, your family can travel, they can come here. They just will not be allowed to go through that matriculation process as we have allowed in the past, where the family can literally follow the new cadet through the checking out of certain uniforms, getting their haircuts. That was always a big fun time, and I apologize that we just can't allow that this year. So the matriculation process, the cadet, and 2 family members. These questions are still up, so I take it that they're there because they haven't been cleared, that we haven't answered them properly. I want to go back again to senior ROTC. We are a new family, so I'm not sure how this works. Will our son receive orders from Army Cadet Command to report to Nmmi? Again, our professor of military science, Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Johnson, who is an active duty Title 10 military officer, will be putting out a complete letter of instruction that will cover both basic cadets and advanced cadets, where they will go, how they would get there, and that will be released either tomorrow or the first part of next week. So those questions will all be answered in this letter of instruction from Colonel Johnson. I think we've about cleared the questions that I see. We've kept you about an hour. I very much appreciate your time today. We will do this again as soon as we gather enough information to justify asking you to spend some time with us. 15 June is a big time here in the state. We hope to get additional answers that will clear up some of our unknowns so that we can then apply our procedures and processes to the fact that we now know some of the things that we'll be allowed to do or not to do. So I want to thank you very, very much. Please refer to our website when you have questions. We try to post everything there on a frequent, active basis so that it's changing and the questions are there in front of you. All of the people on this call that you see and have heard from were very easy to contact us personally. All of our web email addresses are just simply our last name at nmmi.edu. Please feel free to send any of us a question, and we'd be more than happy to get an answer for you. And with that, I'd like to close the call. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We look forward to all of you being here in August, and we will keep this up as a frequent occurrence until matriculation. Thank you.